Hi, I'm Tony Wiggins here with another episode of Locked On Jaguars. Cuts. Tim Tebow. We'll talk about it. He's no longer a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll get right to it here on the Tuesday edition of Locked On Jaguars in just a second.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, man? What's going on? This is your man T-Wig here with another edition of Locked On Jaguars here on a Tuesday. Glad I waited to record because, boom, it happened today. The Jaguars reduced their roster from 90 down to 85, but we're not going to bury the lead. The one that everybody wants to discuss and talk about is the fact that Tim Tebow was waived. Such a big story coming into this offseason. We'll get to that here in the first segment. Second segment, we're going to talk about the tight end position and where do they go now? Why was he cut? One, he probably just wasn't good enough, but two, they have some other people, and I'll tell you who those guys are. They're probably going to focus on the rest of training camp. Segment 3, I'm going to talk about some good news, some guys that are actually playing well, and that's the defensive line here in Jacksonville. They got a bunch of guys that are built like vending machines, but they're quick and they're agile and they can move. I think they're going to do a good job of stopping the run this year. And you can get big guys without actually getting fat guys who get tired. So good thing that strength and conditioning and performance program is the one that's being implemented right now by Urban Meyer. But let's not bury the lead. We'll get through all of that stuff today. We're going to go back to the first segment here and talk about Tim Tebow. It was valiant. The dude came back. He tried to make a football team after being out of the NFL for 7 years with a position switch, and it didn't work. This isn't a pat on the back. This isn't an I told you so. That's not what this is about. But it's more or less me just reiterating something that I said when this all first happened. And that is this. So many players and so many coaches have told us all over the years, especially the guys like me who weren't good enough to get past high school, right? At least in football, that it takes everyday want to. The difference between the guys that make it and the guys that don't outside of talent is the guys that put in the reps, the guys that put in the work, the guys that and that's pretty much universal. That's with anything you do, right? You watch cooking shows and you can tell who really puts the time in with cooking. You a barber, right? Anything that you want to be good at, you have to actually put time into it. And while it was valiant that Tim Tebow did what he did, and obviously, when you're talking about the degree of athleticism of someone like him, it's way beyond the degree of athleticism of someone like me and most of the people that I know listen to the show. The difference is, though, is I just acquiesce to what I used to hear and have always heard great players and great coaches say, that you have to put the time in. When a guy holds out for 2-3 weeks and misses camp, what do we hear? What do we hear? Even though that guy is a football player, if a guy's a great player who holds out of camp, well, he's not in football shape. He missed 3 weeks of practice and he's not in football shape. He has to get going. Anything that goes good, anything that goes bad with him, whether it be an injury or his play, is going to be blamed on the fact that he missed 3 weeks of practice. You follow me? So, if a guy can miss 3 weeks of practice or a month of practice, and coaches are always battling and teams are always battling with the Players Association about OTAs, mandatories. We don't have enough practice time. This, that, and that. So the thing that these people say that they need so much of, it just went out of the window with Tim. He missed 7 years. You need your players in the building like all the time. I believe you. I believe you think that every rep, those 2 weeks or those 3 weeks that you're fighting the NFLPA for means something, right? Okay, so imagine what it's like for 7 years when a guy goes and does something else. To think that the way that those coaches think and the way that they act when they are always wanting more time and more practice, and sometimes they get fined and sometimes they lose draft picks for overdoing it with those reps and those practices. They risk all of that for reps that really aren't important when a guy is someone you know or like that you want to sign who's been away from the game for 7 years. My skepticism is only because of the things that I've heard coaches say. My skepticism that anybody, not just Tim Tebow, but anybody that's away from something that long at that level with those guys, that they can just pop in and just do it and change positions. It's not about want to. It's not about how big and strong somebody. I named a bunch of big, strong guys that got cut all the time. I'll tell you what, if you don't believe me, in a couple of weeks, go down there on Pink Slip Day when the Turk comes through and takes, 30, playbooks from people. Watch them when they walk out. The gladiators, all of them are big and strong, man. They're all big and strong. I've named celebrities in the past that are big. That doesn't want to, desire, and all that. It's about talent. I saw him in practice get thrown around a couple of times. He looked awkward. He's 6'3", and he's built like a brick, but his arms aren't particularly long for that position. And you actually have to, you heard Urban Meyer talk about walk a little. You can't play with short arms or low arms. You have to be able to extend. And he couldn't block guys that were 3rd and 14 the other day. What if he has to block Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa? And what if he has to block Myles Garrett? And what if he had to block those guys? And you know who he's blocking for? You got it. Trevor Lawrence, the golden child, the one that we believe the football gods blessed Jacksonville with. What if he misses a block on one of those Pro Bowlers, not a 3rd or 4th teamer, and they saw Trevor in half? You going to feel sympathy then? No. So this is not about that. It's just about he's not good enough. They gave him a chance. I salute him for trying, because not a lot of people would have done that. But it's time for us to take a deep breath. It's time for us to realize and move on that it just wasn't so. And it doesn't make you a hater, by the way. It does not make you a hater. It absolutely does not. I'll tell you what will make you a hater, though, if you don't pay attention to our live fantasy football show that is coming up here very, very soon. We have the first fantasy football questions that you need answered before the draft. Don't miss the Locked On Fantasy Live on Wednesday, August 18th at 9 p.m. Eastern, streaming on the Locked On NFL YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NFL, man. I got a show on there every Wednesday with my man James Rapine, so you guys need to be tuned in on that as well. We're going to discuss the tight end position a little bit further, because I think it's extremely important that we understand who's there, why they're there. Tebow got cut. What are they going to do? Do they have enough at that spot? Because for a rookie quarterback, that's a very, very important spot. It's a check down spot. It's like your buddy, is what they used to call it. Remember when we played basketball, you had 2 big men, one guy boxing out, one guy in the high post, one guy in the low post, and my coach said that's your buddy. So a tight end could be a buddy because, one, he protects that short area between the defensive line and the quarterback. He can chip and help those linemen. He can also go in the flat and give a quarterback a dump off so that there aren't negative yards. So we're going to discuss that position in the second segment, and we'll do it in just a second here on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Jaguars. After I tell you guys about Bet Online, which is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at Bet Online. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including baseball and boxing and UFC and MMA. Before the next pitch, head over to Bet Online on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Is anybody going to beat the Dodgers this year? Didn't they just get another Hall of Fame pitcher? Wow. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as your teams prep for their runs through the playoffs. Now head to the website by using your laptop or your mobile device and sign up today at BetOnline, and you're going to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline is your online sportsbook experts. The promo code is Locked On to get that 50% off of your welcome bonus. Do it. I did it. I get paid. Why don't you get paid too? Moving right along here on segment 2 of the Tuesday edition of Locked On Jaguars. Sometimes, man, you just got to wait for it. And we got some news today that I saw hints of it. Some of my former colleagues that I work with that are close to the Tebow situation started saying that they weren't hearing good news and this, that, and the third. So shout out to them for putting that out there. And then the first confirmation I got wasn't even the email from Jags PR. It was actually from a tweet from Tim Tebow where he really, really thanked Jacksonville. He talked about living his dreams and, trying to thank the Jaguars organization for a shot. It was just pretty evident, though, that when you saw the play the other night, if you watched him, it just didn't look fluid. It didn't look the way that you think it would. So to me, it just makes me also respect the guys that actually do make the team, because he's a good athlete and he's big and strong and all of that stuff. But for guys, these guys are good, man. And I think we need to put some respect on their name. When guys, these dudes are good. He didn't make the first cut. That's the first one. So you have to understand how really good these dudes are and how well they can play. But what's left at the tight end position for the team? James O'Shaughnessy is obviously the guy. He hasn't, been around much because he's been a little banged up, but he's obviously that veteran that will be better because of the quarterback improvement and also the emphasis on improving the tempo in the offense. I think he'll do very well. The Davis kid that they got last year from Georgia Tech, I think he's been well. He's played. Tyler Davis. He's played pretty good and has looked the part in practices. I want to say his name right, Effelson. He's been a good-looking player. He can really, really be a good pass catcher. Big Chris Manhurst, who they signed in free agency to a one-year deal, is a blocker, but he did catch a pass the other day. He looked more athletic in person than I thought he would. I thought he'd be just a big burly guy, but he's not. He actually looks fluid as well. It might just be the number he's wearing too. I think he's wearing number 84. And that, every time I see a guy in that number, it kind of looks like Shannon Sharp a little bit. And he's put together really, really well. But the rookie, Luke Farrell, he looks the part too. And he's a tall kid. He's like 6'6". Obviously should be very familiar with Urban because he played at Ohio State, but these guys, that's what you have left. Those five guys that I just mentioned. So they're going to choose from that, and they'll probably look around and scour the waiver wires too to see what they can come up with. But the question is how much emphasis and how important would that position be from a pass catching standpoint? I don't know. I don't know the offense very well. It may just be a situation where they're going to, kind of go tight end by committee. But I do think it's important in terms of pass protection and blocking, because one of the things that we saw the other day is we saw a little bit of a struggle from the certain aspects of the pass protection. So if you're going to have those protection issues, one of the things that you absolutely need to shore up is the offensive line play, as well as the tight ends being able to chip and block. And we saw Tim Tebow, he wasn't very good at that. So those are the things that you really have to focus on moving forward with that tight end position, and to try to see and try to determine what you're going to get out of it. I don't think it's a situation where it's going to be a Travis Kelce situation here in Jacksonville where you're trying to find that guy who can catch all of those balls like that. I really think because of the running backs and because of the emphasis they want to make with the wide receivers, that's where most of the balls will go, particularly when you get close to the red zone. They have some bigger receivers, and I think they're going to really, really try to run the ball and get the ball to the guys on the outside. All right, man. So we're going to roll along here and get to this last segment. This is the good news segment. This is where we're going to talk about a positive, and the positive is the interior defensive lineman and the depth at that position, something that the Jaguars really did invest in. They spent a lot of time investing in that position in the offseason. And I think right now, when you look at the conditioning of those guys in practice, the limited times that I've been able to go, along with the way that they moved and were able to run to the ball and flow to the ball and keep the linebackers free, I think it's good news. And I think it's something that we need to emphasize and really, really take a positive look at right now. So we'll check that out, and we'll talk about how they could be helped. We'll do that in the third and final segment here on a Tuesday of Locked On Jaguars. All right, man. So you want to save time and money when using Rock Auto, right? You have to. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Rock Auto is where you can go to save that bread. And why choose to spend 30, 50, and even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? An example here is the Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from a chain store. It's $216 from Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com and you'll see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need are where? You got it. It's at rockauto.com. Let me get you on the Stat Hero, man, and tell you what's going on with Stat Hero. Now, you have to understand. Do you know that 85% of people who play daily fantasy sports lose? That's right. Is that really that surprising? Not to me. The game is rigged against you, and you're playing against thousands of other lineups, not to mention experts who have more tools and more time. You don't stand a chance. Well, I'm introducing Stat Hero. It's the first ever daily fantasy sports book that puts the player in control and winning within reach. Here's how it works. Stat Hero shows you the lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. You name your stakes, winner take all, and you have the advantage. Stat Hero is only showing you their lineups ahead of time. No one else's. No one else even does that. You don't get a chance to see their lineup, so you can see what they're doing and you can try to beat them. All right. So you got to go to stathero.com/locked-on, sign up for free. And right now you can get 3 times, 1, 2, 3 back on your first play. They're giving you a 300% match. That's unheard of as well. So go to stathero.com/locked-on. It's stathero.com/locked on. All kinds of deals and information, man, that I'm passing out here. I'm just giving this stuff out like it's free lunch. You guys need to eat it up, man. That's right. Eat on this, though. The defensive line. I'm going to give some attaboys to some guys. I did a podcast. I want to say it was during the summer. And right after the draft, I also talked about it. I talked about Devon Hamilton and how he could flourish. A lot of depth charts I saw from friends of mine had Devon Hamilton backing up the tight end the defensive tackle that they got from Malcolm Brown that they acquired from the Saints. And I was like, no, they're going to play side by side. He ain't no backup. He's going to play or he's going to win the job. And I did take the liberty to ask a former head coach that I ran into who was on the defensive side of the ball. I said, can they play together? And he said, yeah, absolutely they can, especially since they're running that odd front that they're running that Baltimore ran for so many years here in Jacksonville. So you're seeing Devon Hamilton and Malcolm Brown lined up next to each other with Roy Robinson Harris lined up at the defensive tackle /end spot. So you get 330, 325, or 330 and 335, and then Roy Robinson Harris is like 6. I want to call him 6'12". He's really tall. He's like 6'6", 6'7", at about 295, 300, and he's quick and real long arms. So you got this dynamic matchup and guys and mix of guys that can get pushed, but all of them can move their feet. So then when you get to the backup and you look at Adam Gostis and Jay Tufele and some of these other guys, I hope I'm saying his name right, by the way. It's either Tufele or Tufuele, but those guys, along with Doug Costin, now you're starting to get a nice mix of guys that are some 300-pound dudes, like I say, built like vending machines, but they're quick and they're agile and they can move. That's why you saw them have so much success stopping the run. What can actually help that group is if Josh Allen and Jihad Ward and Smoot, those guys are going to prefer. The last 2 guys are really like depth guys and rotational guys that give you a little bit of a different look, especially when you go like to a nickel package. Josh Allen, though, has to be, if he is as good as he appears in the way his body looks and he's healthy again. And the way he looked his rookie year, man, let me tell you something. I know y'all think I got that itch. I'm like Ray Charles. I'm not. I'm just, for some reason, something feels like I'm getting bit by something. But if Josh Allen turns out to be the pass rusher that everyone hopes that he's going to be, watch out. That's all I'm telling you. Watch out, because those guys won't have to sell out so much to the pass rush. They can just get in their gaps, push the line around, and do what they do. And then that frees up the guys on the mid-level. That frees up Miles Jack and Wilson and allows those guys to flow to the ball, which is that's the thing that they do best. They don't want to have to take on blockers. They don't have to worry about all of that stuff. They just want to see it hit and run, because that's their strength. So really want Josh Allen to step up. It'd be nice if Josh Allen and Caleb Vaughn step up, but it would sound like me being greedy to ask for all of that. So right now, the defensive line, the investment in the defensive line appears to have been working out, to be working out and I'm not surprised by that, by the way. I'm not surprised that it's working out, because of the simple fact that I did think that they found something in Devon Hamilton last year. It was good to trade for a veteran like Malcolm Brown. Everyone thought they were just going to miss Tyson Alualu. I do think it would be nice if they could have like a superstar stud type player with his hand on the ground. And, they got all next year to do that. But they don't miss the Alualu not signing. They also don't miss Christian Barmore, who's third string right now in New England. To all of my draftniks that were angry that they did not take him in the first round. He's third string in New England, behind some guys you haven't heard of before. So we have to be very, very, mindful of the fact that so far so good. Doesn't surprise me that Joe Cullen, because that's his expertise, is going to get the absolute best out of those guys. And Josh Lepore, of course, who's always been a good coach of coaching those guys on the interior. So good look for the Jaguars. Started out with bad news today on the podcast, but we got some good news at the end. I'm not going to always be critical. I'm just going to always keep it real and be honest. I'm going to keep it real and be honest with you about the Locked On Fantasy podcast. Or I'm sorry, the Locked On Bets podcast, or Locked On Fantasy. You do need to, now look, I'm gonna correct myself, and I'm not gonna try to play this off. You do need to pay attention to Locked On Fantasy Football. I told you that at the top of the show. That show is coming up on, make sure you subscribe to Locked On NFL, because it's going to be live on our YouTube page. But Locked On Bets is totally different, because you want to make you some money, but you got to get your information together first. And it's sponsored by betonline.ag, but that show is hosted by your boy Q and expert Lee Sterling, and they give you all of the information that you need. The plays, the things to play, the things to not play. Now I'm gonna tell you, a lot of experts that can steer you wrong. Lee ain't one of them. He's been spot on, and I actually have learned a lot from listening to the show, and you can do the same thing. And make sure that you subscribe to the Locked On Bets podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, man, I'm gonna let you know what I always do at the end of these shows. We'll see you tomorrow, but take care of each other to make sure we get there. Until then, it's your man Tony Wiggins signing off here on Locked On Jaguars.